Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am once again Lord Ice. Sorry for the bit of a delay. I've been busy recently. But here we are with another special episode. Since the mission that we would be doing right now in the series would require level 10. Let's see here. Next mission is Task Force Hippocrates. Requires Lieutenant Commander 10. So, if you were doing that mission, you would have already ranked up. Pull up the rewards here. Level 10, new ship, new trait slot, permission to buy next rank of ships. Of course, I've already explained the trait system, so we're going to explain ships. So here we are in Earth Space Dock, specifically the shipyard on Earth Space Dock, which you can access from... Well, you won't be able to see my cursor. It was glitchy. But let's see, I think. Alright. So in the red section at the bottom right, there's a section that kind of looks bluish greenish. In the back of that area, there's a turbo lift that will take you here. Technically, they're on the same level of the map, but it loads a little bit before it actually takes you here. Oh, someone on my friends list. Okay. So, when you rank up, you get a new ship. You go here, you talk... Well, first, you go to Admiral Quinn. He tells you you've done a good job. You get to rank up, and you come here to get a new starship. And it's as easy as click, click. Okay, so I'll start with the lieutenant ships. No other, no small craft. Not lieutenant. Lieutenant commander. Okay, these are your three basic ships. Cruiser, escort, and science vessel. The ship that you've probably been using up until this point was the Miranda-class light cruiser. It's basically a cruiser, yeah. So, there's really three big differences between all of these ships. I'm going to start with the science vessel first, though, because it's kind of the middle ground. And I'm just going to expand this window so that you get a look at the C-store ships, because there are C-store variants of just about everything these days. Okay, science vessels. Real easy. They're basically the middle ground. They're kind of support ships. In Star Trek Online, your role in combat in space is not wholly dependent on what class you are. You could be a tactical officer and still be a healer, because it's dependent on your starship. If you've been playing this game for very long, you'll know that you've got bridge officer slots. Lieutenant Science, Ensign State, etc., etc. And the powers that your bridge officers give you tell you what role you're going to be. For instance, engineers, or cruisers, have a lieutenant engineering station. Escorts have a lieutenant tactical. Science vessels have a lieutenant science. And as you go up in rank, commander, you get the heavy cruiser, heavy escort, research science vessel, and you get lieutenant commander bridge officers. As you rank up, the highest bridge officer you'll be able to put on your ship will be one rank below you, until you hit captain. Because after captain, it's just all commander. The role that your ship does is pretty much determined by the big chair, I like to call it, which is the highest ranked bridge officer that you can slot. Cruisers, it's engineering. Escorts, it's tactical. And science vessels, it's science. So, that's basically how bridge officers work on ships. If it's got a big seat for, say, tactical, it's probably going to be a DPS ship, like escorts. There are some exceptions to this rule, but I'm not really going to get into those yet. We're not far enough along. Stat-wise, these ships change very little. I chose the science vessel to start with, well, not when I was playing the game, but for this explanation. I chose it because it really is the middle. Oh. well, kind of the middle. A science vessel has basically the middle ground when it comes to turn rate. And if you look over under bridge officers, you can't see my mouse because I have that turned off. It was not behaving well. Base turn 15. We go to escorts, base turn 17. Cruiser, base turn 9. So it's basically the middle ground when it comes to maneuverability. It's the middle ground when it comes to device slots, since cruisers have 4 and escorts have 2, so that's have 3. Crew, middle ground again. 2 forward, 2 aft weapons, which is the same as a cruiser. Escorts actually have 3-1, because they're more oriented toward attacking, rather than just broadsiding. It's got the lowest base hull of the 3, so it's kind of squishy, but it has the highest shield modifier. And what shield modifier does is, if you mouse over, say, a shield, the shield capacity that it's showing for this shield is based on the shield modifier of one of your primary ships. And for some reason, the game seems to default to the shuttle shield mod. So if I actually go to all ranks and go to small craft, what am I using on this guy? I'm using a run-up. I'm using a Delta Flyer. Delta Flyer is a shield mod of 0.6. So, when you equip this, the normal capacity gets multiplied by 0.6. Da, da, da. So, cruisers, flat 1. What you see is what you get. That is the base capacity. Cruisers, slow turn, big crew, biggest hull rating. So they're kind of the tanky people. Like I said, science vessels are kind of support. They can kind of tank if you can keep your shields up. And they have a shield mod of 1.3, which means they get more out of their shields. Excuse me for a sec. Escorts, low hull, 0.9 shield mod. They're designed to be squishy, but the problem with this game is that they're kind of not, especially at later levels. They're the only ships that can equip dual cannons and dual heavy cannons, which are the highest hitting damage per volley weapons in the game, which makes them DPS. They've got a limited firing arc, and you've actually seen me use them. And only escorts and some exceptions to that rule can use them. Except for Klingon ships. Klingon and Romulan ships, just about all of them can equip cannons. But when it comes to Starfleet, which is what we're focusing on for the moment, it really is cannons only for escorts. Like I said, there are exceptions, but we're not going to get into that yet. I think you don't get the first exception to that rule until... Actually, I think they're all at VA by now. Dreadnought cruiser, that's one of them. Multi-vector advanced escort, heavy escort carrier. Assault cruiser. Multi-mission science vessels. The Vesta variants can load cannons, and they actually come with special ones. The Chimera Heavy Destroyer, which is the ship this guy is flying right now, is... well, it basically is an escort with a bit more tankiness to it, which is never a good thing, actually. But really, those are the only exceptions Fed side. I know I said I wouldn't get into it, but whichever. Now, consoles. The light cruiser, of course, had one of each type of console. One engineering, one tactical, one science. Cruisers get a second engineering console, escorts get a second tactical console, and science vessels get a second science slot. Real simple. When it comes to this level of the game, when you hit Lieutenant Commander, there isn't that big a difference between cruisers, escorts, and science vessels. It's not really that huge. However, if we go up to, say, Commander, 3 engineering, 1 tactical, 1 science, heavy cruiser. Heavy escort, 3 tactical, 1 engineering, 1 science. And heavy cruiser, 3-3 weapons. Research science vessel, 3-2 weapons. And that's almost basically the maximum. And it's got 3 consoles. Base turn 13, base turn 15, base turn 8. Base hull 26k, base hull 20k, base hull 18k. So the differences start to get bigger as you go along. Also notice 3-2. So it's got the same weapons as the science vessel. You can start to see the game kind of getting a little bit imbalanced. We go to Captain, and this is where you see the really famous ships. Like, when we went to Lieutenant Commander, you saw the Constitution class. James Kirk's ship, kinda. But in this one, you get to see, like, the TNG era ships. The Defiant, the Voyager, the Enterprise, etc. 4-3 weapons for the Captain level cruiser. 3-2. 3-2-2 for the consoles. 32-5 for the hull. Base turn 6, which is really, really slow. Base turn 17 on the Defiant, which is like... Base turn 12, 22-5 hull. So the differences start to get really big. And once you hit Captain level on the science vessels, you are not going to be able to have any more weapons. Because the maximum that any science vessel has is 3 forward weapons and 3 aft weapons. This is basically because they're not really meant to hit hard. And because of the limited weapons, after Lieutenant Commander or so, Lieutenant Commander or Commander, it's really not worth it to fly a science vessel anymore. It used to be. You used to be able to do some neat stuff, but not really anymore. Escorts kind of rule the game right now. This ship has 4 too, so it's one of the first ships to get a 4th forward weapon slot. And usually, it'll only have 4. There are 2 ships that I can think of, well, 2 bundles of ships that I can think of right now, that have more. The Andorian Escorts and the Scimitar Dreadnoughts. One's for Feds, one's for Romulans. Excuse me. And really, it just caps out at, what's it called? 4. Rear Admiral, you start getting bigger differences. However, at Rear Admiral, you also get 2 variants of each type to choose. Assault Cruiser is a bit heavier, but a bit slower right now. Assault Cruiser. 432. Okay, so the Assault Cruiser gets a 3rd tactical console slot. And... So basically the Assault Cruiser versus the Star Cruiser is... They're both really engineering-oriented ships, but the Star Cruiser has a bit more science-y focus, and the Assault Cruiser has a more engineering focus, has a more tactical focus. Advanced Escort... Science. Okay, so the Patrol Escort has more engineering stuff versus the Advanced Escort's more science-y stuff. Recon... Tactical... Deep Space Science Vessel engineering versus tactical on the Recon. The differences start to get kind of big at higher levels. To the point where at VA there's a very noticeable difference. When you hit Vice Admiral, you start unlocking the really, really big endgame ships. The Tier 5+. If you are a subscriber that has been subscribed for 400 or more days, I think it's 400, it might be 600. No, yeah, it is 600. You get what's called a veteran ship token. This was a throwback to back in the day when everyone was a subscriber. This game wasn't always free to play. And what happened was, when you hit max level, you got the VA token, and you got to buy 1 C-Store ship out of a choice of 3, basically for free, but it was character only. It didn't unlock for the entire account. Excuse me. the exploration cruiser retrofit, tactical escort retrofit, and where is it? Long range science vessel retrofit. Those were your three choices for a VA ship. And they were higher end variants of the captain level ships that you flew. They had better stats, and more importantly, they came with a special console. And, for instance, the Galaxy retrofit has the saucer separation. You should know what saucer separation does. It separates your saucer. Tactical Escort retrofit came with a cloaking device, so it was the Defiant from seasons 3 through 7 on DS9. Long Range Science Vessel retrofit was the Voyager that you saw from Endgame. It had the ablative generator console, and I think I could show that to you if I got on Rygo, but he's on Ryza. It would take a while for him to get there. And that's basically the Voyager you saw in Endgame that had the super battle armor. It was a temporary effect and it gave you huge damage resistance. It still is. Just not worth it. But as you could have told, the differences get really, really big when you get to higher levels. And it's really kind of simple. Escorts, tactical, science vessels, sciencey, cruisers, engineering. And like I said, the ship you're flying determines your role. Now, there are other types of ships. The Federation, you don't really see them that much. Let me just turn on other, and we might actually see them. Where are you? Heavy escort carrier. I'll touch on the heavy escort carrier after I find the ship I'm looking for, because... here it is. The Kitty carrier. Keisha Netrox carrier. Horrible, horrible ship. I haven't flown it, but I've known people that do. They don't like it. But it's the Federation's only real example of the fourth type of ship in the game. Excuse me for a moment. Sorry, I've been having coughing fits the last couple of days. The Kitty carrier is just that. It's a carrier. Klingons had these pretty much from day one. And they're kind of science whack escort oriented. So they can be engineering oriented sometimes, but they're usually science oriented. They've got subsystem targeting, they've got the sensor analysis, I think, and most importantly, they've got an equipment slot called hangar. Full carriers have 2, heavy escort carriers like this one and most of the variants on the other factions have 1. Flight deck cruisers, they're usually called. And they basically launch pets. And the pets help you in combat because this ship is slow. Base turn 5. The heavy escort carrier is basically an escort, however. It's got a tactical focus, but it's also got a hangar slot. So it's basically an escort with a shuttle bay. Whereas the Kitty carrier is a carrier, it's kind of crap. You don't really see that many carriers on the Fed side unless you're looking at the Jem'Hadar Dreadnought, which is, of course, a low-B store ship. Oh, and the Vesta class and its variants also have hangar slots. They're kind of OP, but they're not as OP as some of the ships that were released recently. Cough. Scimitar. Cough. Yeah, I'm not going to hop on that right now. But that's really it. The differences seem kind of small when you look at all the different ships. But when you actually start flying them, you can tell very quickly the difference is huge. I mean, these differences are massive. I mean, you saw, what was that episode? What was it? Researcher Rescue, the one I played as Antilles on the Deliverance. The one that I played the really, really big ship. It was really slow, it fired beams, it didn't hit hard. But you've also seen this character in combat. He turns fast and he demolishes everything. And I don't think you've actually seen me die yet. And that's kind of a problem with this game. That really any player will tell you. I don't want to get on too big of a rant, but basically, Space combat in this game is horribly imbalanced. Right now, it favors DPS and specifically escorts. Really, if you're not a DPS role, you're practically worthless to your team. Which is why I actually turned my engineer, the one that was flying the Deliverance, into a DPS ship, and I'll probably show you that eventually. But really, escorts and tactical officers and DPS do everything too well. Like, they do their job too well, and they can do other jobs really well at the same time. For instance, Antilles, the guy that I just turned into a DPS when he was a tank. He's basically unkillable, and he has tons of DPS. And that's really the big problem with this game. Escorts, for their damage, kind of have the problem of not being easy enough to kill. They're supposed to be really, really squishy targets. You're supposed to be able to look at them wrong and make them go pop. Not the case in this game. Really not the case. Like I said, you've never seen this guy die, but that's because PvE is really easy. If you go into PvP, you're guaranteed to die. I don't recommend PvP in this game. I'll probably go off on a separate rant about all that stuff later. But ships like that, the Ambassador, it's a cruiser. It can't do dual cannons, it's slow, and it's mainly engineering and science oriented. People don't really fly it that much unless there's a specific reason. If you're just general PvE, you're going to go DPS, because it's the only thing that's worth it. And in the end, you can make your ship durable enough to sustain a ton of damage while still dishing it out. There's no reason not to fly an escort. And escorts keep getting buffed because they sell well. But basically, Cryptic is making money off of things being overpowered instead of actually fixing them. It's a big problem in this game, but DPS is still fun. I mean, if you manage to make a build that actually works that isn't DPS, more power to you. You don't have to be DPS, it's just recommended. I'm just looking at my other ships here. I haven't seen these in forever. Not in this game, anyway. But, really, game imbalanced. Game imbalanced more than you would expect. Game imbalanced very badly. It's not unhealthy, because, well, it is kind of unhealthy, but it's not going to get fixed. And you're still going to have fun. I mean, I've had fun. Not doing these normal missions, because this game also suffers from the blight of having a really, really bad early game. But if you're doing late game, if you're doing Q missions, and not Q as in John Delancey Q, Q as in this thing right here. These are mostly endgame content. If you're doing those as a DPS, you're still going to have fun. I mean, it's a lot harder than the PvE missions you've been doing in the storyline, but it's a lot more fun. And that's my little soap about game OP. I really wish it would be balanced enough that ships other than escorts would be worth half a damn, but it's not likely because, well, escorts sell well. Escorts sell very, very well. And anything that's escort-like sells well. But that's really it. So, let me just pet the triple here. It gives you a Romulan mark. I'm not going to go into reputation for a very long time because reputation is endgame. But really, that's it for the ship tutorial. Ships, you go here, you buy them. You can also buy them off this Zen store. C-store, sorry. It uses Zen, and properly it should be called the Zen store, but nobody calls it the Zen store. Heresy. Cough, OP, cough. Like I said, Dreadnought Cruiser, Science Vessels. Now, most of the C-store variants, I probably should mention this while I'm thinking about it, most C-store ships of anything, most C-store variants of any ship will have something special to them. For instance, if we run over here to, I think it's this ship. Yeah. This is the Tactical Escort refit. And you remember the Tactical Escort was the Tier 4 Defiant, the one that you got at Captain. The refit that I just showed you comes with a special weapon called the Quad Cannons, which are actually really, really good most of the time. Right there. Quad Cannons come with the Tactical Escort refit. Most ships actually give you a console. For instance, well, the Dreadnought Cruiser doesn't give you a console. It has a cloaking device and has a spinal lance. And it can equip dual cannons. It's actually a really fun ship. Rygo's flying it right now. The Tactical Vesta has a special console that can only be used on the Vestas. Like, Tier 5 consoles can usually only be used on Vestas. Heavy Escort Refit, Thunderchild class. This comes with one of my favorite consoles, which is why I actually already have it. I don't know if I have it equipped, but I have it somewhere. Let's see. Ah, here it is. Point Defense. I think you've seen me use Point Defense. You press a button and it destroys basically any fighters and frigates in the area. It takes about 10 seconds, has a range of 5 kilometers, does 10 times normal damage to fighters, 3 times normal damage to frigates, and it'll basically intercept just about anything coming at you. Really fun. Really good. Some people say it's crap. I disagree. I kind of like it a lot. It's especially effective against Tholians, because if your weapons aren't disabled, you can pop that and it'll destroy the Tholian webs. Although there are other ways around that. Bellerophon, just picking ones at random. It's got Nadion Detonator. That's kind of... It's a bridge officer power rolled into a console. Kinda. What it does is it buffs your torpedoes so that when they hit, they'll do a photonic shockwave, which is basically a knockback AoE. Which usually originates from your ship, but not this time. Let's pick another pretty much at random. Where? Let's pick Regent class. Regent class comes with the Metreon gas canisters, which is kind of... It's the Riker maneuver from Star Trek Insurrection, but it's not really that worth it. It doesn't do too much damage. And it comes with an 180-degree firing arc torpedo. Again, not really that awful worth it. Excelsior Retrofit gives you a transwarp console that allows you to transwarp anywhere. Exeter gives you the tailpipe torpedo from Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country. When they were fighting Chang's Bird of Prey, they had to perform surgery on a torpedo, make it track the cloaked ship, and stick it up the tailpipe. Venture class gives you the antimatter spread that you see in Best of Both Worlds. It's an AoE confused placate. Oberth, what does the Oberth give? Enhanced plasma manifold. I don't know what that does. I don't know all of them. Gladius class gives you the impulse capacitance cell, which is basically an oh shit, get the hell out of here button. Bellerophon gives you the torpedo point defense, which can only be used on that ship. NX gives you the grappler, which is a poor man's tractor beam. I used to use it really heavily, but I don't anymore. Rhode Island gives you... Oh, the Rhode Island is a really fun one. It's a photonic displacer console. What it does is when you pop it, it creates a holographic duplicate of your ship and pops mask energy signature on you. So you basically go into stealth, and anything shooting at you will be shooting at a hologram, and you can run away. It's a really good oh crap button. I've tested it on Trouble. Vulcan Dekir, nobody uses this ship. I completely forget this ship exists. But it has the ability to launch a small craft from the middle. Klingon ships, Romulan ships, Klingon Romulan. Well, that's really it. Like, if you buy a sea starship, you're probably buying it for the console. Because if you've got the level requirement for it, you can fly it in place of one of the standard ships. Like, for instance, you could fly the Exeter instead of the regular Tier 1 Constitute, the regular cruiser over there. But it's got better stats, but you're probably really only buying it for the console because most of the time you're probably going to be Vice Admiral by now. Well, by the time you hit endgame. So, like, Science Vessel Refit, the Rhode Island that I was talking about. Compared to this, it has an extra engineering slot. It's got a second lieutenant science officer, which is actually kind of pretty good. Cruiser refit, second lieutenant engineering, second science console, escort refit, kind of the same thread, etc., etc. So they've got better stats if you want to fly them at the level where you would normally have them. For instance, since I've got the Thunderchild and a Federation character, if I were to ever level up another Federation character, when I hit Commander rank, which is level 20, instead of getting the Heavy Escort, which is what I would normally get, I would get the Heavy Escort Refit, and I would fly the Thunderchild that would have better stats. I would also have access to the point defense system, which is really, really fun. Also, if you want to buy a sea starship at Lieutenant, there are Lieutenant variants. Let's go here again. Probably starting to bore you by now. But, let's see. No small craft, no other, and let's go to Lieutenant. Constitution Cruiser. It's another light cruiser. It's basically got the same stats as the starting ship, except you get an extra engineering ship. Engineering console, sorry. NX class, which is the ship you saw in the Star Trek Enterprise. It's got a second tactical console, light science vessel, extra science console, and it comes with the plasma module. This console mod is a reusable power source that increases your ship auxiliary and shield power levels. It's not terribly great. Not bad, but not terribly great. Plus the ship is hideous. So that's the Toscani. I actually got that ship for free about a year. The Christmas right before the ship went. The Christmas right before this game went free to play. If you logged in on a Federation character, you got the Toscani for free. And if you logged in as a Klingon carrier, you got the Sukhov Raptor for free, which gives you a binaural warhead, which is really, really, really fun. Oh, I love the binaural warhead. But that's really it for ships. And I know I should have wrapped that up a long time ago. So this is Lord Ice once again signing off. See you out there. Recording complete.